XProtect video management software has a few interfaces designed to meet different user needs. The XProtect web client and mobile client extend your access when you need flexibility beyond a client software installed on a dedicated workstation. The web client is accessible through most web browsers without software installation, helping you monitor, share, and act on video securely from the browser. The XProtect mobile client is ideal for you to monitor security systems while you're on the move. The mobile app sends push notifications for alerts, and it supports secure remote access from your smartphone or tablet. Let's look at a few of the key features for each interface type. In the web client, you can view live video streams from multiple cameras simultaneously. You can also play back recorded video directly in the browser. The web client includes controls for camera pan, tilt, and zoom, also known as PTZ. With these controls, you can change the camera view remotely. Audio is integrated, so you can listen to camera audio and speak via connected speakers when two-way audio is enabled. You can prepare, download, and share video using the Investigations tab. If access control is integrated, you can use the web app to activate output triggers. This includes locking and unlocking doors, activating lights, or triggering other devices right from the browser. The mobile client helps you stay connected to your surveillance system, whether you're on-site or on the go, with apps for Android and Apple iOS. Push notifications help users respond quickly to alarms, while Smart Map makes it easier to find nearby cameras and understand where incidents are happening. Video Push turns your mobile device into a security camera by streaming live video directly into the XProtect VMS. This is ideal for documenting incidents by using your phone as a camera to capture video evidence as it occurs. In the mobile client, you can monitor events or trigger user-defined events or outputs connected to XProtect VMS. You can bookmark live or recorded video sequences directly from your device. Like other XProtect clients, the mobile app supports HTTPS encrypted communication to help protect data. To learn more about XProtect or book a demo, follow the link to schedule time with a Milestone representative.